The economic system under which we live takes its form from an endless variety of daily business transactions. Different from anything in the past, different from that of other lands, the economy of a democracy is based not only on the needs of the people it serves, but also on their wants and their desires. In such an economy, the function of selling is of major importance. For selling not only helps to fill our needs, but also through its creation of new wants and desires, constantly urges the standard of living higher and higher. Selling as we know it can exist only where there is freedom of choice, a freedom we take for granted from earliest childhood. Yes, freedom of choice, freedom to decide whether, when, what, and which to buy or not to buy, this is one of the foundations of a democratic economic structure. The buyer is all important in a free economy. He determines its course by constantly voting in the marketplace for the products of his choice. That product may be a can of food or a railroad car. Whatever it is, it continues to be in the market only if people continue to buy it. Just as the office seeker in a democracy must strive to win the votes of the people, so must the products in a free economy compete for the buyer's preferences by presenting their benefits to the customers. It is the salesman's job to bring these advantages to the prospective buyer's attention. Effective selling takes many forms. Some of it is non-personal, where no salesman is present. The selling done through mail-order catalogs is one example. Here, the description of a product sells the customer. Non-personal selling is done through coupons in magazine and newspaper ads. The supermarket grocery is an example of self-service selling. And it seems that nowadays one can get almost anything from a vending machine. But the bulk of selling is personal selling, with the salesman offering an essential service to his customers. He provides knowledge and information geared to their specific needs and wants, and through persuasion, he increases the use of products by the public.
I suggest that you get 2 pairs of the same color. That way you won't have an odd one to discard, and you'll save money.
We've made a fact-finding study of your production problem. And by using these larger and faster hydraulic presses, you can cut your cost 9 1/4 cents per unit. And that's a saving you can pass on to your customers.
To sum up, this policy offers a means of greater security to your family. If anything happens to you, your wife is guaranteed an income.
We're reducing the price on this item because of unseasonable weather. We don't want to carry it through the winter. It'll make a real extra value for your customers.
You'll notice that these new suds are completely dry. Now watch the difference in appearance right here on your own chair.
This electric typewriter is designed to require less effort. It ought to increase the efficiency of your department by at least 30%.
Here's a new type plastic with a special fiber content. It will add more life to your product.
Here's a sample of a new form of penicillin, Doctor.
Oh, yes, I read about this in the journal.
If you'll ship in carload lots, we'll route around the heavy traffic points and save your customers half a day.
Thus, day in and day out, through the whole complex structure of business activity, salesmen of every type are at work, analyzing customer needs, giving information about their products, and creating an interest and a desire for new products. The modern salesman, aware of his responsibilities to his customers as well as to his company, performs a service to both. And through creative salesmanship, he performs a service to the public, too. But is selling really necessary? Wouldn't the standard of living continue to rise without the efforts of selling and salesmen? Well, let's look back at our world a few years ago.
And it gives off more light than a mantle.
Yes, but how long will one of these bulbs last?
Longer than a mantle.
That little filament glows in a vacuum, keeps it from burning up.
Doesn't seem possible.
And with electricity, you'll have more light for filling out your prescriptions.
Oh, I carry this lamp with me wherever I go. It gives good enough light.
I don't know. My horse goes fast enough for me.
Why, with a car like this, you can have the pleasure of going into town every month.
I got too much work to do to go gallivanting into town that often.
No water pan to empty and no cake of ice to melt. Your food keeps longer and stays fresher and crisper.
Yes, but how can it stay cold without ice? It just doesn't seem possible.
Yes, the luxuries of yesterday have become today's necessities through creative selling. Salesmen calling on customers have been responsible for the creation of wants and desires which did not exist before. Through billions of individual sales, markets have become larger, production costs less, prices lower to the consumer. Thus, the salesman, aided by advertising, helps pave the way for a better standard of living. Today, through mass production and the selling activities of salesmen, millions of people drive, and other millions have jobs in fields directly connected with the automotive industry, to which many countries contribute material. Because salesmen were able to sell the use of electricity, today millions are employed in the electrical industry, and the face of our world has been changed. Recognizing this, modern business, both large and small, usually places its chief sales executive in a top management capacity. In many companies, this executive is the vice president of sales, who is responsible for sales policy. Reporting to him is the sales manager, who has direct charge of the sales force. Related sales activities such as advertising, marketing research, and customer service also report to the vice president of sales so that all work together as a team. Yet even before these men go to work on a product, a great deal of selling has already been done. Originally, an idea had to be sold.
And for another thing, this machine can spin dry the clothes without their being lifted out.
I see. Some of our salesmen's reports have suggested that feature.
And even more important than that is that this design makes possible a completely automatic washing machine, controlled by timing switches.
That's quite an engineering problem. Let's take a look at these drawings of yours again.
It may not have happened just this way, but like every new product, the automatic washing machine had first to be sold to an organization which could develop, produce, and market it. Within that organization, the engineering department had to be sold on designing the new product to suit customer desires. Production had to be sold on producing the machine at the lowest possible cost. Purchasing had to be sold on the need for obtaining parts and supplies at the best prices. The sales department had to be sold on the idea that dealers would handle the new machine and that people would buy it. The finance department had to be sold on the belief that the investment would make a profit for the company and its stockholders. All these selling jobs, backed up by research, are necessary before any new product can be made ready for the market. Then another phase of selling begins.
From an engineering viewpoint, we're ready to go ahead. We have tested this newest model in the laboratory and in consumer homes, and it's satisfactory in every way.
What about the sales forecast, Ed?
Well, Lloyd and I have been over the market research figures. They show that there are about 5 million potential customers.
And you can add to that at least 250,000 new homes each year.
Figuring our price and the problems of educating our distributors, dealers, and salesmen on this new machine, and the servicing problems we may run into, we put our first year's forecast at about 40,000.
How about it, Walt? Can you build as many as Ed and Lloyd say they can sell?
Well, we'll have to add about 200,000 square feet to our present factory space. If we can do that, I think we can build them.
What about the working force?
Well, personnel's making plans now to get us the skilled men that we need. We'll get them somehow. Frank's been checking into the problems of purchasing.
We have sources lined up now for steel, copper, glass, and rubber. We're working on the others.
If Ed and Lloyd can sell them, we can build them.
Good. What about the report on financing?
I've been talking with the bank about the terms of a loan for new equipment and capital.
We're going to need about $3 million.
So tooling up for the new washing machine was begun. Following this, the vice president of sales, together with the sales manager and the managers of advertising and marketing research, started work on the sales campaign.
Well, these are the answers that housewives gave about what they disliked most about wash day. 1, lifting wet clothes. 2, cleaning out the wash.
The salesman's reports of customer wants, together with questionnaire surveys, were valuable in determining which sales appeals would be most effective.
That third objection, the whole idea of wash day, that's our main sales appeal. Our machine eliminates the whole idea of wash day. Hands never touch water.
Well, let's take those objections in order. Lifting wet clothes got the most answers. On that point, we can develop a very effective sales program.
Once policy had been set, it was up to the sales staff to work out the complete sales campaign. In this company, there were 3 regional managers in charge of eastern, central, and western regions of the country. For each regional manager, there were several district managers, each of whom supervised a number of salesmen. A meeting of the regional and district managers was the starting point for the sales campaign. There, the new machine was unveiled.
Remember what that market survey showed. A survey based on interviews with more than 10,000 housewives. We know that there are 5.25 million potential customers for this machine. And in the next 10 years, almost every home in the country should be a potential customer. Now, we've gone over it in detail. Once again, take a look at this machine. Check it, point by point, against the housewife's own expressed wants. And remember this always. This machine is completely new. It's the first of its kind. Now, man, let's have your questions.
Will we market through our usual wholesalers?
Yes, except that this year we'll have to limit our outlets. We're going to have a session on that this afternoon.
What material will we have to show the housewife what this means to her?
We've worked out a campaign that's really going to get our new product across. National advertising, direct mail, dealer displays. Not only that, but we're planning to have demonstrations to women's organizations in key cities.
Thus, the sales and many problems of marketing the new product, such as the types of wholesale and retail outlets to use, and the quotas to assign the salesman. Each of the district managers in this meeting had under him a staff of salesmen who called on wholesalers. They had to be familiar with the wholesaler's problems of warehousing, installation and servicing, problems of inventory. In turn, the salesman who called on the retailer had to know how to help the retailer sell the product, satisfy his customers, and at the same time make a reasonable profit.
It's another washing machine, isn't it?
No, it's entirely new and will outsell anything else in the field. It's the first of its kind. An automatic washing machine.
But I don't have enough floor space to put in another line.
Oh, this isn't another line, Mr. Patterson. That's just one basic model. Surely you have enough space for just one machine that will help bring in new business for you.
It's automatic, huh?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if my clerks will be able to figure it out.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. When I bring in your sample, I'll personally train each one of your clerks. What's more, we have a presentation to help guide your clerks. They can't go wrong. You see, here's how it works.
Thus, selling may call for much more than making a sale. It often includes personal service to the retailer, helping him in every way that may be necessary to keep his stock moving.
And to help you introduce this machine, we're running a national advertising campaign reaching potential customers right in their homes, suggesting that they come to your store to see this machine demonstrated. And here's a decal to tie in with those ads. And these are folders and bulletins for your customers with your name imprinted. And these are radio scripts and mats for your local advertising. The housewife is going to have to come to your store to see this machine demonstrated. And you should average at least 5 demonstrations a day.
And so the new product was launched through a long series of selling processes. Everything was focused on one point, the housewife, who had to be convinced that this new machine would be of real service to her.
It must be complicated to be automatic like that. Won't it go out of order easily?
No, ma'am. It's really worked out quite simply. And there's a year's service guarantee that goes with it.
Oh, I'm afraid it costs too much.
But look at the back-breaking work it saves. Just set the dial and that's all.
It doesn't look as if this little cylinder would get the clothes clean.
It's been thoroughly tested in consumer homes.
Can you adjust the water temperature?
Yes, ma'am. It washes either hot or warm. We just turn this little pointer.
Then you pour soap into this little hole, and that's all there is to it.
No lifting of wet clothes from one tub to another.
Uses less soap.
Just set the dial.
Gentle washing action. Washes warm or hot.
Completely automatic.
Completely automatic.
Completely automatic. The new washing machine sold well that first year. Now the second year's plans had to be made. How many would be produced? The key to this question was still another question which faces all manufacturers in a competitive enterprise system. How many can we sell?
Lloyd and I have been over this very carefully. He's talked to our regional managers, and they've checked with their district managers and their salesmen and dealers, and we believe that we can increase our sales quota this year by 1/3.
That's right. Our first year is going well. We're about 9% above quota right now.
This coming year, we're going to have stronger competition, you know. 2 other concerns are bringing out automatic machines.
Well, fair competition is a good thing for all of us. Gets more people acquainted with our type of product. Keeps you fellas in engineering and production and sales on your toes and gives the customer a better product for less money.
We're going to have to push to meet our new quota. It'll depend in part on how soon we get our new model on the market.
What about it, Walt?
Well, we're retooling for the design changes now. We'll supply demonstration machines in plenty of time.
What about the increased quota? Can you increase production to match?
Well, it'll mean increasing our skilled production force, buying 2 new presses, and getting additional warehouse space. Let's see the setup of your sales quota on a monthly basis.
Thus, the sales department, working as a team with other departments of the company, developed a creative selling program to launch a new product. This new product found its beginning in a public need, a need recognized and reported by salesmen calling on dealers in touch daily with the public. And while we have illustrated a selling program developed by a large company with large resources, similar programs have been developed by thousands of smaller companies and by countless individuals with a good product or service, usually starting in one community, one state, or one market at a time. The work of every salesman, whether he realizes it or not, affects the whole business structure, for the salesman sells far more than his particular product. He is selling an increase in the standard of living. In a democratic society based on freedom of choice and dedicated to a better living standard for everyone, there must be selling on a large scale if we are to maintain mass production. For until it is sold, no product has any business value, nor can it have any effect on raising the standard of living. Thus, the salesman is the spark plug in a competitive economy. In creating sales, he helps to create jobs for millions of people on the production lines, and among the 15 million who work in the selling and distribution of goods and services. The salesman in the store, the insurance salesman who sells an intangible investment, the salesman who calls on the retailer, the freight salesman who sells a service, the salesman of raw materials, the manufacturer's representative, the sales engineer, all in their different jobs are tremendously important in helping to maintain employment and to build up the ever-increasing flow of goods, which is the lifeblood of a dynamic economic system.
Don't know what to make of it. That's why I decided to call you, Doctor. The way Henry's been acting lately, it's just...
Hello, Doctor. Feeling well? Hello, Emily. Not feeling well? You say he's had this trouble before?
The last time was several years ago. You know, when everything was so hard to get, Henry had a terrible time.
Then he was all right for a while, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, he's been getting along beautifully with people. But then, just the other night, the whole thing started over again when we were having dinner at a little restaurant that used to be one of Henry's favorite places. Henry's such a meek man that people often ignore him, just as that waitress did.
You folks decided what you want yet?
Yes, thank you. It was,
It was roast duck.
that's what I said, yes, roast duck, yes, roast duck. please.
Roast duck?
Some applesauce, maybe, and,
I just served the last order to that party over there.
They came in after we did.
Well, I can't help that. We got some fish left. Ducks, fish, what's the difference? They both swim.
When our food finally came, it was stone cold. And then Henry discovered she hadn't brought him any lemon, after he'd asked her twice.
all I want, Emily, is just one little slice of lemon. If that waitress would just realize how little it takes to make me happy, if the owner of this place only knew how easy it is to make people feel welcome in his place of business...
There's your lemon, mister.
Oh, thank you.
Henry, for a man who shot all the lions and tigers you have, you certainly don't get much respect in a restaurant. You know what you remind me of sometimes? A stuffed mouse. Doctor, the strangest look came over his face, and then he pulled a little black book out of his pocket and started to mark in it.
Now, Emily, I can't see any cause for alarm in that. Lots of men keep track of the places where they've been badly treated, so they'll remember not to go there anymore.
Oh, no, that isn't it, Doctor. Let me tell you about the next time. He was buying a suit, and as you know, Henry is very conservative about his clothes.
I tell you, I want Oxford gray. Oxford gray.
Mac, this is what everyone's wearing nowadays. Oxford gray? Why, I tell you, people would laugh at you. There, look at that fit across the shoulder. Perfect. And look at that fit in front. Perfect. Doesn't even need any alterations. Except maybe the sleeves. Now let's look at the pants.
Is there another pair of trousers? I always want 2 pair.
2 pair of pants for that price? Say, when did you buy your last suit anyway?
Well, I think it was about last June. No, I do not like the suit. I
was supposed to meet him at the store, and by the time I got there, he was simply furious. He got that expression on his face again. Then he started putting things down in the notebook, drawing a picture.
Well, really, Emily, I can't see why you're so upset. It's probably just a natural release for his pent-up feelings. After all, the salesman insulted his taste and good judgment. Make matters worse, he browbeat him in an argument.
There, you see, I know he's up to something. I've been sure of it ever since yesterday when we went marketing.
Next.
Have you any nice lean pork chops?
I got these.
They're not very lean, are they?
Well, that's what I got.
One of these chickens for broiling.
Well, hello, Mrs. Bates. What can I do for you?
You could give me some nice lean pork chops.
Well, I've been saving a few just in case you came in.
By the time I got through with my shopping at the bakery, he was in an argument about price.
Oh, the sign said 60 cents a pound, and this is a 5-pound chicken. Now you tell me it's $4?
Yeah, but 60 a pound is for those scrawny old hens. You picked out a good chicken. Naturally, you don't expect to get it at the same price, do you?
So when I found the book this morning on the whole table, I just thought you ought to have a look at it, Doctor. After all, you've been Henry's doctor and friend for a long time.
Even so, I didn't know Henry was such an artist. Our butcher, playing favorites, price juggling, a boor. My dollar is worth just as much as anybody's dollar. If he had been honest about prices, he would have made a sale instead of losing one. But what on earth does he mean by over the gun rack? Waitress at the B restaurant. Ignored us. Careless service. Impertinent. I'm easy to please. All I ask is a little attention and a bit of friendliness. Over the bookcase. Over the bookcase? Salesman at Brown's men's store. A show-off. Too smart. Henry thinks this man will be better off if he paid more attention to what the customer wants. Over the mantel. Seems Henry's had plenty of trouble. Hometown Motor Company, serviceman. Said they would have car ready by noon. When I got there, they hadn't even started to work on it. I had to wait 2 hours. I know exactly what he means. And it isn't just the service department either. I remember when I bought my last new car. I got just about the same kind of treatment Henry got in the restaurant. I wasn't buying pork chops. I was buying an automobile, a major investment. Yet I practically had to take the car away from him.
Henry, are you all right?
You have an accident? All right, yes, dear. Accident? Thanks, old man. Just had one.
Henry, what are you doing?
I'm going to take that bear's head down from over the bookcase.
Oh, dear. Over the bookcase.
Over the mantel. Over the gun rack.
A public service, my dear.
I think I'm going to faint.
Oh, wait, Emma. Before you do, let me get you another chair. Thanks, Doctor. I need this one to get these heads down before the store's closed tonight. By the way, Doctor, I'd like to know what you think of my project.
Just, what is your project?
Well, sir, bad-mannered people sometimes remind me of animals. Now, I've met a few bad-mannered people in business lately. And this afternoon, they're going to remember only too well that they've met me. Now, it's not just the butcher and the baker and the candlestick maker either. I think that everybody in all businesses in these times ought to pay attention to the way they treat people. Now, this afternoon, I'm going to give these animal heads to some people I know. They'll be a good reminder of the right way to keep friends, to keep business, no matter how hard times may be or what may come. This first one is to a waitress I know. Only a bear can afford to hibernate when customers are waiting. It's easy to be nice to people, and it only takes a little bit of attention to make them feel welcome. Now, this would help remind that restaurant owner, too, that his customers judge him by the people who work for him. Now, this is going to a salesman I know. Don't be a smart shark. Know your product, but let the customer tell you what he wants. And of course, that'd be good advice for any salesman. Now, this applies to lots of people in business, but it's going to our butcher. Boors and bores have this in common: they have few friends. It takes lots of friendly customers to stay in business. You make friends by treating people right.
I've got some ideas about people who act like animals myself. Emily, get out of that chair. I'm going to work. That is, if you don't mind my joining in, Henry.
Not at all, Doctor, not at all.
Henry, I don't think we've got enough heads to go around. Every business and professional man in town ought to have one to keep him reminded of the fact that there's no such thing as doing business without the customer. That no matter what kind of product or service he sells, his success depends on getting along with people. In fact, I know I need a reminder myself once in a while not to be a bear or a boar or a shark. Henry, I want to go along with you.
Since the early days of motoring, when cap and goggles and duster were standard equipment, there have been three major advances in driving. First, the self-starter took the place of the back-braking hand crank. A second big change came when the open touring car, with its trials and tribulations, gave way to the closed body. But there was still the business of pumping the clutch and shifting gears. Of course, clutches became easier to use, and synchro mesh, introduced by General Motors, made gear shifting easier and quieter. Then the automatic transmission appeared. And in 1950, Chevrolet was first in the low-priced field to bring motorists this new way of driving. And now, in 1951, in this beautiful new Chevrolet, Powerglide is a time-proved sensational advance in driving ease and comfort and safety. It's as simple as A, B, C. No, even simpler than that. With the control lever at drive, there are just two things to do. A, press the accelerator when you want to go. B, press the brake when you want to stop. And there's no C, because there's no clutch. No shifting, no work for the driver. Nothing difficult to learn, just some of the old driving habits to forget. To understand its basic principles, let's see how the rear wheels get their power to drive the car. Let's represent the driving power by a mechanical hand that applies the twisting force of the engine to the rear wheels. Usually, this twisting force is transferred to the rear wheels through a rear axle, a differential, transmission gears, and a friction clutch. But perfect smoothness is not possible with a friction clutch and gears. So let's put this hand of iron in a velvet glove. Now we can apply engine power with perfect smoothness by using the force of liquid to transfer the power from the engine to the rear wheels. Now we have a power flow that's as smooth as velvet, and we no longer need the friction clutch. In Chevrolet's Powerglide unit, this is the pump driven by the engine. It sets the fluid in motion. And here is the turbine that takes the twisting force or torque from the moving oil and transfers it to the drive line and rear wheels. But Powerglide is much more than just a fluid coupling. To eliminate transmission gears, engineers designed these wheels called stators and a secondary pump, which make possible the automatic increase in the force of liquid flow to give us not just 3 or 4, but the equivalent of an infinite number of gear ratios. Just as nozzles on a garden hose can increase the force of the water, the stators increase the force of the liquid in the transmission and direct it to multiply the twisting force. And with this flexible control of power, we no longer need transmission gears. The power under perfect control is passed from engine to rear wheels, exactly as it is needed for all driving conditions. For many years in Army tanks, the torque converter has been a star performer. And in massive General Motors buses. Chevrolet's automatic power team combines 3 special units designed to work together. First, a special 105 horsepower valve and head engine designed to develop its maximum twisting force at much lower speed than other engines. This means smoothness and economy. Second, the Power Glide automatic transmission. And third, a special fuel-saving economizer rear axle to give an overdrive effect. All 3 elements are designed to work together in perfect balance. A power team unique in the automotive industry. In the mountains of the East and the Rocky Mountains of the West, owners have discovered the ease and comfort and safety of driving with Power Glide. 90% of your driving can be done in drive position. As a test, 9 Power Glide Chevrolets were driven from Detroit to Phoenix, Arizona, through heavy city traffic, through all kinds of country, over hills and mountains, without ever changing from this setting. For extreme climbs where you would normally shift into lowest gear, simply move the control lever to low without ever lifting your foot from the accelerator. And you have at your command an equivalent gear ratio that is lower than low, full engine power under tip-toe control. Power Glide puts new safety at your fingertips. In drive position, the engine produces a noticeable braking effect. But for steep downhill grades where you would normally shift into lower gear, again, a touch of the control puts you in low. And you go down at controlled speed without using the foot brake. Safety for you and your passengers, safety for others on the road. To back up, lift the control lever slightly and move it to R. And your Chevrolet responds with oil-cushioned power. You'll find parking easier. Besides neutral, you have another position called park. When you put the control to parking position, your wheels are mechanically locked, independent of your braking system. You can't roll or be pushed. On slippery roads from Maine to Oregon and all over the country, owners have found how Power Glide masters these road conditions. Low and reverse have been placed next to each other, so you can move the lever back and forth without lifting your foot from the accelerator. And rock the car out of the most difficult spot. And when you pull away on muddy road or slippery pavement, Power Glide improves traction because it applies engine power so gradually. What about sandy or gravel roads? Because it can rock the car back and forth, owners have found Power Glide equal to sandy roads in all sections of the country. In fact, hundreds of thousands of owners have tested Power Glide under every kind of driving condition. Out in the deserts of California and Arizona, and out on the prairies in midsummer months, Power Glide Chevrolets have driven through hot, baking country, mile after mile without overheating. How about starting up on hills? That used to be a problem to many drivers. Owners find that for most hills, you can stay in drive. For very steep ones, switch to low, step on the accelerator, and Power Glide gives you the engine power you need to start up the hills smoothly and safely. Uh-oh, are we in trouble? Sometimes, due to forgetfulness, batteries do get run down. Now what? Well, with the control lever in low, because of exclusive Chevrolet design, Power Glide will start when your car is pushed at a speed of about 15 miles an hour. That's much less than the speed that some other automatic transmissions require. And what about gasoline economy? After a year of operation, many drivers report equal or even better economy with Power Glide than they've enjoyed with previous standard Chevrolets. Out on the open road especially, drivers have reported better mileage. Much of this economy in both city and country driving is due to the overdrive effect of the economizer rear axle. Because of its special high reductions, normal open road driving speeds are accomplished with the engine turning more than 10% slower. Of course, economy depends very much on the driver himself. This kind of driver will give up some gas economy for extra performance. By switching the control lever to low for super getaway, you'll leave the pack behind without any trouble. But what about getaway when you're in drive position? Well, let's watch a normal driving test. Here's a Chevrolet with power glide and another car with a standard gear shift. There's the light. The driver of the Chevrolet gives the accelerator a good nudge, then lets up a little. The other car gets away in first gear. The standard shift is a little ahead. But as the standard car loses momentum while the driver shifts to second, Power Glide keeps accelerating smoothly, evenly. And when the other car hesitates to shift into third, Power Glide has pulled way out ahead. With its velvet cushioned flow of power, Power Glide gives a new feeling to getaway. Yes, Power Glide is a wonderful new experience in driving. The hundreds of thousands of Power Glides on the road during the first year have given the equivalent of several years of owner road testing, as compared with the experience of any other new automatic transmission. A major engineering achievement. No major service problems. So Power Glide offers you the only proved automatic transmission in the low price field, and the only one with all these driving advantages. And now, more beautiful than ever, with more driving ease than ever before, Chevrolet for 51 with Power Glide lets you drive with a velvet glove, smoothly, effortlessly, the equivalent of an infinite number of gear ratios. Always just the power you need, automatically, under cushion control. Another reason why Chevrolet is smarter, safer, and offers greater value.
This next election, you'll have to go down and register soon.
And the hours of registration are from 9 to 5 until this Friday. Be sure to register so you can vote.
The preceding was a presentation of the West Side Civic Club.
Well, you can go to the registrar or voter's office in the courthouse. But it just so happens that the deputy registration officers will be in your neighborhood next Tuesday afternoon. You prefer that I have them call at your house?
But I registered when we moved here. Do I have to register again?
You must register before you can vote. You could register with your neighborhood deputy registrar, or you can register local courthouse in the office of the Registrar of Voters.
May I help you?
Is this where I register to vote?
Yes. Have you ever voted in the county before?
No, I just moved here the first of the year.
Have you lived in the state for the last 6 months?
Yes.
Have you lived in the county for the past 60 days?
Yes.
Have you lived in your precinct for the last 30 days?
Yes.
All states have residence requirements. Such requirements vary from state to state.
Your name?
David B. Collins.
And your address?
617 Northside Drive.
You're in Precinct 7 and your polling place is Maple Grove School. Where were you born?
Dayton, Ohio.
Your age?
42.
Sign on this line.
When you sign the registration form, you testify that the information on the form is correct. With your signature, this form becomes the official record of your qualification to vote. Loss of registration results from changing your residence and, in some states, from failure to vote or from the periodic expiration of the registration list. If for any of these reasons you lose your registration, you must re-register. When you cannot register in person, you may register by mail. Upon application, a registration form is mailed to you. When properly filled out and returned to the registrar, it is entered with the other official registration records. These individual records are used to make up the voting list. Only the persons whose names are on the completed voting list are qualified to receive a ballot on Election Day. Ballots may be different in color, size, shape, and detail from state to state, but the ballot you receive on Election Day will probably be one of two general types: the party column type, sometimes called the Indiana ballot, or the office group type, sometimes called the Massachusetts ballot. On paper ballots of the office group type, the candidates are listed under the heading of the office they are seeking. Their party affiliations usually follow their names. On the voting machine, the office heading is also above the name of the party candidate. However, on the party column ballot, you will find a different arrangement. On this type of ballot, the candidates' names are listed in a column under their party heading. This arrangement of candidates' names is the same as on the voting machine, except that on the paper ballot, the party column reads vertically. On the machine panel, the party column reads horizontally. The details of marking ballots vary. However, instructions are clearly stated on every ballot. Read them carefully and follow them exactly. Special voting instructions may be given for some sections of the ballot. They refer only to that part of the ballot. The ballots of most states provide blank squares beside each candidate's name. To vote for a candidate, make a cross X within the square opposite his name. A properly marked ballot might look like this. Some states provide a special means of making your mark, such as this rubber stamp. The proper marking equipment for your state will be supplied by the officials at the polls. Ballots may be disqualified in many states if a check or a plus mark is used. Even the cross X may be disqualified if the lines do not cross inside the square, if the lines do not cross to complete an X, or if they extend outside the square. Here is the accepted mark for your ballot. You may vote a split ticket or a straight ticket. Voting a straight ticket means that you vote for all the candidates of one political party. When you choose candidates from more than one party, you are voting a split or scratch ticket. When marking a split ticket, you must vote for each candidate individually. You may also vote a straight ticket by marking an X after each name. However, on the party column ballot of many states, you may vote a straight ticket by placing a single X within the party name or symbol at the top of the ballot. When you vote in this circle, it is the only mark you need to make, and all of the candidates whose names appear in the column will receive your vote. Many states permit a write-in vote, so that a voter may add a candidate's name to the ballot. Since the techniques for a write-in vary, ask your election board about the correct procedure in your state. A referendum on public measures such as constitutional amendments may be included on the ballot or may be on separate ballots. Read the instructions carefully before you vote on the issue. Machines are used for voting in many places. As on the paper ballot, you can vote either a split or straight ticket. You may have decided to vote a straight ticket. After you have closed the curtains, pull the lever of your party. This action exposes an X by each name of your party's candidates. Your vote is cast when you open the curtains with the operating lever. The tabs are also cleared and the secrecy of your vote is guaranteed. There are two ways of voting a split ticket on the machine. Let's suppose most of the candidates you select belong to one political party. First, pull the operating lever to the opposite position. Next, pull the party lever of that party, which includes the majority of your chosen candidates. Then push up the pointer where you wish to vote for another candidate and pull down the pointer of your new choice. Before you make a new choice, make sure all the pointers for that office are pushed up. Otherwise, the machine will not allow you to vote for your new choice. Now you have made your selection, but you have not yet voted. You cast your vote only when you pull the operating lever back to its original position. Your vote is then cast, the voting panel is cleared, the curtain is opened, and the booth is ready for the next voter. With the other method of voting a split ticket, you disregard the party lever and make your selections directly from the various parties by pushing down the individual pointers. For a write-in vote, lift the slide above the office and write in the name. Space for special propositions is found near the top of the voting panel. Selection is made by pushing down the proper pointer. Again, by pulling the operating handle, your vote is cast and tabulated on the automatic counters inside of the machine. If you obtain a sample ballot and study it carefully before going to the polls, you can become familiar with the ballot you will use on election day. You would then avoid feeling rushed in situations where election laws limit the time you may use to mark your ballot. On the day of either a primary or general election, you should report to the specified polling place for your precinct, unless you have already been allowed to vote by mail using an absentee ballot. The location of your polling place and the hours for voting are publicly announced before Election Day. If you have any questions, you may call your local election board or the local headquarters of your political party. After your name has been checked on the voting list, you may enter the polls. Only persons voting and election officials are allowed inside the polls. This is a closed primary election. When you sign for your ballot, you must declare a party affiliation. After you have received a ballot naming all the candidates seeking your party's nominations, go directly to a vacant booth to make your selections. Read the instructions carefully and make the appropriate marks. In some states, you are allowed to take your sample ballot into the booth. If you should spoil a ballot, return it with an explanation to the election officials. Then your old ballot will be voided and a new one will be issued. Remember, the officials are here not only to check your qualifications to vote, but also to protect your right to vote and to assist you with any problems. This type of election employs the Australian ballot, which means you vote in secrecy on uniform ballots provided by public authority. When you have finished marking your ballot, fold it so that no one can see how you have voted. If there is an official seal or signature on the back of the ballot, be sure it is visible when the ballot is folded. After you leave the booth, go to the ballot boxes and deposit your ballot in the proper box, or hand it to the proper official who will deposit it for you. Now let's see how you would vote in a general election in a large city where voting machines are used. You will notice that the procedure at the polls is similar to the rural primary we have just seen. Before you enter the polls, your name is checked on the voting list by representatives of the political parties. You enter the polls, and the clerk checks your qualifications for voting in the registration book. Then you sign the voting book. An election official will indicate which voting machine you are to use. Remember, all you have to do to vote by machine is first, pull the operating handle to the opposite side. Second, select your candidates. Use either the straight ticket method or one of the split ticket methods. Third, pull the operating handle back to its original position to cast your vote. Your vote is important in our representative form of government. Exercise your responsibility. Register and vote.
More than 75 years ago, a man invented the telephone. His name was Alexander Graham Bell. Everybody knows that. But who knows precisely what Mr. Bell had in mind for his ingenious new device? Who knows?
Homicide. Donegan speaking. Yeah? Be right over.
At the tone, the time will be 5 exactly.
Hello, Mom.
Danny, you're home. Do you think this is her first husband? Oh, Lucia!
Tell me more.
Well, I'm not one to talk, but...
The number you have dialed has been disconnected. This is a recording.
Besides, there's more in life than boys. Oh, I must read you a note I got from Herbie. It'll only take a few minutes. Yes, Daddy. I'll call you later.
Of all the cockeyed times for the phone to ring. All right, I'll be there. I'm coming.
The telephone. Few products of man's ingenuity have been so widely used and misused. Today, everybody knows everything about the telephone. But who knows what Mr. Bell had in mind? Also, what he did not have in mind. Here, for example, is Agatha Fewsmith. She's calling a Mrs. Evans about the local church bazaar. But if you were Mrs. Evans, you'd never know it. For some reason, Agatha can't get to the point. The weather leads to summer colds, and summer colds to that nice new doctor in the church membership. And Mrs. Evans is just confused. What's this all about, anyway? And when is it gonna end? Now, by this time, Mrs. Evans feels trapped, and perhaps even a little bitter about the telephone.
Oh, that woman. Well, I never.
Mr. Bell did not have this in mind. But what he did have in mind is so easily accomplished. All it takes is a little organizing. That makes it easier on you, and it makes for a quicker, more pleasant way of getting things done. Precisely what Mr. Bell had in mind. That's even more important in the big, busy world of business. Yet, in his wildest imagination, Mr. Bell would never have conceived anything like the use salesman Sam Black is making of the telephone.
That's just one important feature, Mr. Reynolds. Now, let's talk about the powertrain. That's right, powertrain. That's the engine, the transmission, the rear axle. Well, sure, every car's got them. But the important thing is this.
Yeah. Sounds real interested, doesn't he? Mr. Bell definitely did not have this in mind. It's unstrategic for two reasons. First of all, you can't really sell a complicated piece of equipment over the telephone. Whatever your product, your prospect has to see its features and see them demonstrated to appreciate them. More important, your prospect has to understand your product's benefits to him before he'll buy. And it's simply too easy to say no over the telephone. In fact, it doesn't take any effort at all. But where does the telephone fit in here? Well, what Mr. Bell had in mind for the telephone was not keeping people apart, but getting them together. Using the telephones to establish an opportunity to do a good selling job, or to bring your prospect into the right selling atmosphere. But here's another example of something Mr. Bell would frown on. This energetic young man is Pete Wilson. And believe it or not, he's fairly intelligent, too. He's an air conditioner salesman, and he shrewdly figured out a sales plan. There must be a tremendous concentrated market for air conditioners. All he has to do is cover that market like a blanket. Mr. Bell would approve the determination, but he did not have such a pedestrian approach in mind. Pete has completely overlooked the whole point of Mr. Bell's invention. With time-saving telephone calls, our young salesman can quickly determine his air conditioner market. Who is a potential prospect and who is not. And Pete's ready to concentrate his selling time and energy on real prospects. That's when the telephone can really be an extra sales tool to help any salesman create selling opportunities. For instance, with his telephone and an owner list, a service file, or a registration list, depending on his field, a good salesman can literally ring hundreds of prospect bells right from his own office. And, of course, using the telephone strategically like this is just what Mr. Bell had in mind. Yet, even when the telephone is used strategically, unfortunate things happen that Mr. Bell did not have in mind. For example.
Hello. Mr. Carson, this is Wally Smith, Dependable Life Insurance Company. With that new home of yours, I'm sure you'll want dependable insurance protection.
Not with you, brother.
Another brush off for Wally. And it's really not the telephone's fault. Sure, anyone can see that Wally's actually a nice, friendly guy. But he doesn't sound that way over the telephone. Like a lot of other people, Wally doesn't project his true personality over the telephone. And again, the answer is so simple. Before you make your call, try imagining how you might sound over the telephone.
I'm sure you'll want dependable insurance protection.
And then how you want to sound.
Yes, Mrs. Carson. I'll be glad to drop by and explain it to you.
So, whoever you are, before you make that next call, think a moment. Remember how Agatha ambles on, and make sure you organize your call, even writing down the things you want to talk about before you make the call. Remember, too, that you can't sell a complicated idea or product over the phone. So use the telephone strategically to arrange your selling opportunities. And remember how valuable the telephone can be as a time and work saver when it's also used strategically to create new selling opportunities quickly and easily. And most important of all, remember how easy it is to give the wrong impression over the telephone. So imagine how you might sound to yourself. The chances are your true personality will go out over the telephone just as Mr. Bell had in mind.
For he was not only an inventive man, but a man of great vision. And even though his first telephone message was sent quite by accident, Mr. Watson, come here, I want you.
Mr. Bell, I heard you. I heard every word you said distinctly. You said, Mr. Watson, come here, I want you.
Why, so I did.
Oh, it's a wonderful day for you, Mr. Bell. Everything you've worked for, every dream has come true. It works, Mr. Bell, it works.
Yes, I dare say you're right, Watson. Our experiments have opened up a new age of communications. There'll be a day when people will think nothing of conversing through instruments such as we have developed.
You mean as an everyday occurrence?
Well, that's what I had in mind. The day will come when people will think no more of speaking to someone miles away than as if they were in the same room.
Think of its possibilities.
Yes, Watson. I can foresee the day when homes will be linked to other homes. Homes to factories, factories to stores. Cities will be joined to other cities, and nations to other nations.
But tell me how, Mr. Bell? How can you foretell all these wonders?
Well, now, really, who would know better than I? Any resemblance between Alexander Graham Bell and Don Amici was strictly intentional.
Man has come a long way since he first crawled into that cave, and so has his dwelling. Today, the home does more than fill man's basic need for shelter. It's the center of his culture, the place where he may most completely enjoy his family, his friends, and the pursuit of his happiness. Here, you see how individual homes make up a community, our new suburban way of living together. This, of course, seems rather monotonous. All these identical homes are a poor way of solving the problem. Ah, that's much better. You can find your own house quite easily. You have more privacy. Pretty confusing, isn't it? You know just what you like, of course. But why is your preference different from your neighbors, or even your parents? What are these so-called modern houses all about? How should we live in our day and age? Well, this charming old house was built more than 150 years ago in our nation's capital. It houses the organization which symbolizes our best collective thinking on what a house should be, how it should be built, how it should look. It's the Octagon, headquarters of the American Institute of Architects. This professional society is now more than 100 years old. Let's take a look at what happened to our homes through these years. What's influenced our thinking about the American house? Yes, even 100 years ago, traffic in our cities could be pretty heavy. The streets were crowded with immigrants whose great-grandparents missed the Mayflower. And to their new homes, they brought memories of Europe's Gothic cathedrals, with their pointed arches, their tracery and rose windows. These hangovers of medieval religious architecture cluttered houses in this country hundreds of years later. But Gothic was only one of the many styles to influence our houses during the past century. There was Greek classic, inspired by the Parthenon, the most imposing of the classical structures on the Acropolis. The Parthenon was built of stone, of course. This house is of wood, crudely imitated by our early craftsmen. There were other styles in those days, a medley of imitations. French provincial homes sprang up on Main Street. Elizabethan country manners dominated the outskirts of Middletown, USA. Midwestern bankers built Mediterranean villas. Monterey, French mansard, and Victorian houses, all borrowed from European cultures, devised and designed for faraway people and different climes. Occasionally, someone would dare stay closer to home, in space at least, though not in time, and imitate the charming edifices of our own colonial days. The carpenters were busy, and if the owner simply hired a builder, as he often did, the busy carpenters would carve a wild assortment of classic details, anything they could reproduce in wood, and pour it over the structure like icing on a cake. This hodgepodge, of course, has all styles and none. Yet this kind of house is fairly typical of American housing around 1900. The heavy roof with balconies and turrets, the Greek mixed neatly with medieval Gothic, a carpenter classic. Frosting on the cake. There was great and imaginative variety in the icing, but the inside was always pretty much the same. Preoccupation with the exterior left the inside merely to be cut up with partitions. Now, a cake, of course, must be good eating to be really enjoyed, and a house must be good to live in. It should be adapted to the needs and comfort of those who live or study or work in it. Our requirements have changed, of course, as new conveniences were invented. Now, the bathtub, for instance, is a fairly recent requirement. It was first introduced in our grandparents' time, and believe it or not, it was strongly resisted and opposed in most parts of the United States. Yes, there was legislation and special taxation to eliminate this potential threat to the health of our new nation. If you lived in Virginia, you were taxed $30 a year for the luxury of owning a bathtub. And if you lived in New England, you had to get a doctor's prescription to take a bath during the winter. And it got a little warmer in the American home as heating stoves began to replace fireplaces. Oops! No, sir, you hold that radiator. That wasn't invented until much later. The electric light became available in 1878, but it was seldom used. And most people considered it inferior to the more thoroughly developed and time-tested oil lamp. Well, as things got cozier and more comfortable inside the home, the outside began to change too. City and town planning led to new horizons in housing. In the early days, each lot was usually part of the grid system of street planning. Every house had its pretentious entrance to the street, and all deliveries and pickups, such as groceries, coal, and garbage, were handled at the rear of the house. As this drawing shows, the lots in the early 1900s were all divided uniformly. They were quite narrow and usually clustered around the arteries of the city transportation system. Watch out, here comes the automobile. It's changed our life and our concepts of home planning and building. Better take it through the alley to the garage in the rear yard. That was the commonplace parking spot in the early days. But soon the alley disappeared. The new appliances made fewer outside services necessary. So long, alley. And with the automobile to provide transportation, people could move further away from the city, where more land was available. Home financing became available. Now young families could buy new homes, provided they were small and low in cost. The house they bought was often planned to imitate the old colonial house in New England you see here. Many still exist. The one central fireplace heated the entire house. You went up to the sleeping loft right from the entrance. The central fireplace also supported the upper floor and the roof. But the modern adaptation of the ingenious colonial house had one serious drawback. Isn't that lot small? We want more space today, and architects are working hard to provide the most in livability for the least expense. And the answer is a simplified structure integrated with the site, the land in which the home is built. Here's an example. The living functions of the house are faced to the rear and screened on either side to give greater privacy for outdoor living. The lot is rectangular, which is still commonplace in our thinking. though many forward-thinking architect planners now tend to vary lot shapes. They often design so-called cul-de-sacs, small loops off the main street around which a few homes are built. Curved streets and cul-de-sacs break the monotony of road-type site planning and eliminate dangerous cross intersections. But to come back inside, here is a plan that surrounds what we call the utility core. The kitchen, utilities, heat, and sometimes the bath are all placed adjacent to each other in a central core. The living functions operate around it. It's a good system and works well. But good planning is not restricted to this utility core idea. There are many other types of planning. Perhaps an H-shaped plan provides the best solution, or a layout resembling a T, or a split level to take advantage of the natural land formation. Much can be done with a hilly site like this. In fact, the site definitely determines the design of a good house. And so does the local climate, the temperature and amount of rain. The sun and orientation of the house affect home design. Architects often recall today what Socrates said long, long ago. Should a house be cool in the summer and warm in the winter? The Greek philosopher asked. And when none of his pupils disagreed, he ventured, well then, if you build the north side low and the porticos high and facing south, the building will be protected from the cold in the winter, and in the summer when the sun is high, it will cast shade and it will be cool. But in the winter when the sun is low, it will be warm. This development house, designed by an architect and constructed by a merchant builder, follows Socrates' advice. The glass, you see, is properly oriented to accept the sun's rays in the winter, but to exclude them in the summer. The landscaping becomes part of the plan to form outdoor rooms. The transparent walls, as architects often call the glass area, give the room a feeling of spaciousness at a minimum expense. So you see, the best solution depends on the site, the climate, and yes, of course, and on the requirements of the family. Mother will want her kitchen, and father a den to get away from it all. And let's not forget the car. When you put all these various components together, when a house is designed with the site and the needs in mind, its appearance will usually result in what is currently called modern or contemporary. Social and technical developments continue to cause changes and improvements. The basement, for instance, has only recently been brought above grade. It's a multi-purpose room now for family fun. That's a social development. Technical developments such as air conditioning and skylighting have made the planning of completely windowless interior rooms possible, such as the bath and the utility room. Today's home, you see, is simple, straightforward. It doesn't have the frills which might tend to date its time of construction. It'll be in good taste throughout its useful life. It's sound, uncomplicated, and made up of attractive, durable materials. Now, what about the future? We can't say that any one of these houses here actually indicates the shape of the future, although each of these has actually been designed for contemporary use. Architectural design follows the needs and the living pattern of people, and our future needs and conveniences have not yet been determined. If we knew the future, we would build it today. Oh, no, not that. You can be sure we won't go haywire. Architects are concerned with function, not fashion, like the hemline of a skirt, however attractive, or the tail fins of our next superatomic highway cruiser. But whatever the changes to come, our basic needs are fundamental. Man's house, above all, must be livable. It must provide warmth, companionship, and the satisfaction of ownership.
What do you think about this one, Bob?
Uh-huh. Looks great. But you know, it's a pretty important investment. And there's a lot of things I want to know before we put out our money.
Well, what we ought to do is go around and look at them.
Yes, but there have been so many new ideas and engineering changes lately that, well, it's hard to choose just what we want. Besides, I'm no engineer. How can we make sure we're getting just what we want?
I know what I want. A lot of enjoyment and safety for us and the children. And it has to be comfortable and nice looking and, well, what do you want?
Well, it's got to have a lot of power, performance, must be rugged, and durable.
And economical. Don't forget that.
How can we tell just by looking at it whether it's got all those things?
Just imagine what it would be like if there were a very special kind of showroom where we could help ourselves to just the things we want.
Yeah. Yeah. Where I could walk up to the salesman and say,
What do you have in good getaway and easy handling in traffic? Good getaway, easy handling? We have both of them right here. Just step this way, please. Smooth, fast getaway and power for passing and for hills. Start with the engine. Here's top engine performance. The famous Chevrolet valve and head engine, exclusive in its field. Its valve and head design gives maximum power with economy. We can see why the valve and head design is more efficient on this cutaway model. The engine can take in more air through this direct intake passage, so you get equal efficiency with a slightly lower compression ratio. And to make this engine even more responsive, the new power jet carburetor with an ever-ready fuel supply in the jets gives instant power when you step on it. Twin floats in the carburetor bowl give an even flow of fuel on grades and sharp curves. Now for the easy handling you mentioned. Chevrolet's center point steering with balanced tie rods eliminates unbalanced steering forces. Gives you more driver comfort, less work at the wheel, not only in heavy traffic, but when you're on the open road as well. Isn't this what you wanted?
Yeah, looks good. Well, what do you think, dear?
Well, yes, but I'm worried about the children.
You were thinking about the children riding in the back seat and accidentally opening a door?
Well, yes, that's it.
Let's go over this way. And I'll show you a safety feature that takes care of that. First, let's look at this rear door. Now, try to open the door with a handle.
It turns, but nothing happens.
That's right. Now try it. The rear doors of all Chevrolet sedans can be adjusted this way in a matter of moments. Here's another safety feature. Notice this windshield glass. It's curved for panoramic visibility. You can see better. And of course, it's safety plate like all Chevrolet windows. And that's a Chevrolet exclusive in the low price field. Even the pillars are narrower so as not to obstruct your view of the road. You can really see where you're going. And the instrument panel. Its recessed design eliminates any glare on the windshield from night illumination.
Well, that makes for safe driving. But how about smooth, sure stops?
The safest ever. This new brake is designed so that the car's momentum, either forward or backward, helps to apply the brakes. This means up to 25% less pressure is needed on the brake pedal. And lining contact is constant and even for safe, straight-line stops.
Well, that's good. There's one other thing. It's got to be easy on the pocketbook for all kinds of driving.
Then suppose we step over here. Here are some of the things that give you economy. Operating, upkeep, and repairs. We were talking about the brakes. Just look at this Chevrolet brake line. See any rivets in it?
No. What holds the lining on the shoe?
It's bonded by a new process. No rivets to score the drum as the lining wears. More usable lining thickness. That's a big saving for you. Here are some other important savings. This Chevrolet engine block and the pistons are both made out of cast alloy iron, so they expand evenly. That gives them a precision fit at all times, whether the engine is warm or cool. You get low oil consumption. Here's fuel economy. Chevrolet's exclusive valve and head design. It gets more out of the gas you buy. In this engine, you get economy in every phase of operation. You've noticed that it's no trick to get at the valves for adjusting. That makes servicing easier. Another saving. Repair bills are few and far between when you own a Chevrolet. And when you do have to get service on your car, the costs are low. Economy? Here it is again. First, in the price of Chevrolet compared with others. Second, a year or two from now, you'll find that Chevrolet has a higher resale value in relation to its original cost than any other car in its field.
Well, I know how you feel about economy, dear, but I do want it to be good looking.
Let me show you what we have in appearance. Let's start with the Chevrolet bumper and grille. Notice the parking lights and the big bumper guards. They not only look massive, but give you added protection. That's functional beauty. The body by Fisher leads the field in styling. And once again, it's beauty to a purpose. These long, sweeping lines not only look good, but they're designed to give you a better view of the road from any angle, as well as better balance and a firm footing on the road. The Chevrolet body is the only body by Fisher in its price field. It's a beauty, outside or inside.
It's good looking, all right. But I like to make sure that things stand up.
We have just what you want. The Fisher body we were admiring is all steel. Look at it closely. Steel is welded to steel to make a single solid unit. That kind of rugged strength means thousands of miles of trouble-free service. Here are samples of finish, the result of research and testing in all kinds of climate. This finish will stand up for years with only reasonable care. One of the reasons the Chevrolet engine is so durable is that the valves and the pistons are completely surrounded by water jackets for controlled cooling. You find this only in Chevrolet in the low-price field. Of course, the short strokes of the pistons also contribute to durability. And so does Chevrolet's exclusive four-way lubrication system. The four ways are metered pressure for valves and rocker arms, a vapor spray for pistons and cylinder walls, direct pressure for the camshaft and crankshaft bearings, and a pressure stream for the connecting rod bearings. Exactly the right kind of oiling for every moving part.
There's something else. I do like comfort and easy riding.
Comfort? Yes. This is a Chevrolet exclusive, unitized knee action. The entire front end assembly is built as a unit, aligned and adjusted in perfect balance before it goes into your car. Within these towers are airplane-type shock absorbers. They're Chevrolet's double-acting type to make your Chevrolet ride even better. The rear shock absorbers are also of the airplane type. Mounted diagonally, they give better stability and steadiness on the road. Here are some other features for your comfort. The seats have been moved forward so that you're cradled between the axles, whether you sit in front or in back. Notice the increased width of the seats. Why, even 3 adults aren't crowded.
Did I give you what you asked for?
Oh, yes.
Now let's see what you folks have ordered. You've asked for performance, you want safety, economy and durability, and you prefer good appearance as well as comfort.
My goodness. Did we order all that?
Yes, you want all those things, and you want them to be right. You want them designed to give you exactly what you want, engineered for your satisfaction. tested in laboratories and on proving grounds, and proved by the experience of more thousands of motorists than drive any other car. And if you want to help yourself to all you want, you'll find it in Chevrolet, and only in Chevrolet. Yes, you help yourself to all you want, of everything you want, when you drive Chevrolet.
Democracy has been defined in many ways. We would all agree that democracy includes government by a majority. Let's see if we can, each of us, sharpen up our own ideas of democracy. We know that democratic words and forms have been written into laws. But it is the way people practice democracy that really counts. Let's ask this man about defining democracy. He is a specialist who studies communities and the way people live in them. He goes about his job scientifically, observing, recording, analyzing, and reporting.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Students of society have been reporting their observations and analyses for a good many centuries. And as yet, there is not one single definition of democracy that they would all accept. There is one point, however, they would all agree on, and this is it. In thinking seriously of democracy, one must define his words carefully and use them consistently. When you have your own definitions clear, you know exactly what to look for in a community.
You can roughly locate any country in the world somewhere along a scale, running all the way from democracy to despotism. One community may be near the democracy end, another somewhere in the middle, and a third may be near the despotism end. The question is, what makes one community democratic? Is it the form of government?
Well, for one thing, avoid the comfortable idea that the mere form of government can of itself safeguard a nation against despotism. Germany, under President Hindenburg, was a republic. And yet in this republic, an aggressive despotism took root and flourished under Adolf Hitler. When a competent observer looks for signs of despotism in a community, he looks beyond fine words and noble phrases.
It stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Many observers have found that two workable yardsticks help in discovering how near a community is to despotism: the respect scale and the power scale.
Let's take respect first. A careful observer can measure on this scale how an even break in a community. As a community moves away from democracy, respect is restricted to fewer people. A community is low on respect scale if common courtesy is withheld from large groups of people on account of their political attitudes. If people are rude to others because they think their wealth gives them that right, or because they don't like a man's race or his religion. In a democracy, respect must be shared. Sharing respect means that each shares the respect of all, not because of his wealth or his religion or his color, but because each is a human being and makes his own contribution to the community, from healing its sick or managing its railroads, running its train. One sign of shared respect in a community is that everybody is given a fair chance to develop useful skills and the chance to put these skills to effective use. And there is shared respect if various groups in the community recognize each other's right to hold different faiths and opinions. A power scale is another important yardstick of democracy. It gauges the citizens' share in making the community's decisions. Communities which concentrate decision-making in a few hands rate low on a power scale and are moving away from democracy. Like France under the Bourbon kings, one of whom said, "The state, I am the state." Today, democracy can ebb away in communities whose citizens allow power to become concentrated in the hands of political bosses. Because true democracy can flourish in a community only if there is shared power. That is to say, only if many people have a share in making decisions that the community will support with force, if necessary. More specifically, you can say that power is shared wherever regular popular elections are authorized and are actually held. There is shared power wherever people actually get out voluntarily and vote. And if they vote without interference or pressure from anybody. Look beyond the legal formalities of an election in measuring a community on a power scale to see if the ballot is really free. If the citizens can vote only the way they're told, a community approaches despotism. There is shared power if office holders are drawn from representative groups in society. If they include men from the farms, men from the law courts, men from the stores, men from the factories. In a democratic legislature, shared power shows itself in a strong opposition. Listen.
And that is why I'm confident the governor will have the support of the House on this bill.
Mr. Speaker, as usual, the honorable gentleman is quite wrong. He and the governor he serves so dutifully can expect no support for their policy from this House.
A strong opposition is made by an effective political party system. When legislatures become ceremonial assemblies only and have no real control over lawmaking, their community rates low on a power scale. In a downright despotism, opposition is dangerous whether the despotism is official or whether it is unofficial. The two most important signs of democracy, then, are shared respect and shared power. They, in turn, depend upon certain conditions.
The spread of respect and power in a community is influenced by certain conditions, which many observers measure by means of the economic distribution and information scales.
If a community's economic distribution becomes slanted, its middle-income groups grow smaller, and despotism stands a better chance to gain a foothold. Where land is privately owned, one sign of a poorly balanced economy is the concentration of land ownership in the hands of a very small number of people. When farmers lose their farms, they lose their independence. This one can stay on, but no longer as his own boss. To the extent that this condition exists throughout a nation, the likelihood of despotism is increased. In past centuries, economic balance was improved when large feudal estates were gradually reorganized into independent farms as one part of the development of democracy. This creation of better economic balance aided the further growth of democracy. It is also a sign of poor economic balance in a community if it depends almost entirely on a single company, a factory, or a mine. If this condition exists over the nation as a whole, so that the control of jobs and business opportunities is in a few hands, despotism stands a better chance. Another sign of a poorly balanced economy is a taxation system that presses heaviest on those least able to pay. A larger part of a small income is spent on necessities such as food. Sales taxes on such necessities hit the small income harder. In the days of the salt tax, feudal despotisms were partly sustained by this and other forms of sales tax.
A relationship between economic balance and democracy has been noted and reported for centuries by students of society. Aristotle said that a government made up of middle-income people has the best chance to be democratic. That was 2,000 years ago in Greece. And well over a century ago in America, James Madison warned that extremes of riches and poverty set group against group.
The social observers of our time have also noted that the development of democracy usually goes hand in hand with the growth of large middle-income groups. In today's world of giant technology, one of democracy's serious problems is how to maintain flourishing middle-income groups. Economic distribution, therefore, is an essential condition of democracy. Another one is information. A community rates low on an information scale when the press, radio, teaching in schools, and other channels of enlightenment are controlled by only a few people, and when citizens have to accept what they are told. In communities of this kind, democracy weakens. See how such a community trains its teachers.
Bear this in mind. Young people cannot be trusted to form their own opinion. This business about open-mindedness is nonsense. It's a waste of time trying to teach students to think for themselves. It's our job to tell them.
And when teachers put such training into practice, despotism grows rapidly. These children are being taught to accept uncritically whatever they are told. Questions are not encouraged.
Can you ask such a question? Have you got a textbook?
Yes, ma'am.
Does it say here that our law courts are always just?
Yes, ma'am.
Then how dare you question the fact? Sit down.
And so we aren't surprised when...
But it must be true. I saw it in this book right here.
And if books and newspapers and the radio are effectively controlled, the people will read and accept exactly what the few in control want them to. Government censorship is one form of control. A newspaper which breaks a government censorship rule can be suspended. Therefore, enlightenment is an important condition for democracy. As public education increases, democracy grows. In checking a community for democracy, we must find out whether it provides schools adjusted to the needs of its young people. But just being able to get books and newspapers is no guarantee of democracy. The newspapers of a real democracy meet these tests: balanced presentation of news, disclosure of source, competence of the staff. In applying these tests to newspapers, we find out, first of all, if they report both sides. If the news pages contain news only, and if opinion is kept for the editorial page. Next, we see if the paper says plainly who publishes and edits it. so we know which side they're on. Newspapers in a real democracy meet a third test, competence of staff. This test requires impartiality and to interpret the news skillfully for the public. The competence test also requires newspapermen to use the services of experts.
I want 500 words on freedom of the press for our anniversary edition. How about it? But, Professor, you know more about the history of freedom of the press than probably any other man in the country. Yes, that's right. I mean the responsibility of a free press and other forms of communication like the radio and the movies to enlighten the people into democracy.
As George Washington said in his farewell address, in proportion as the structure of government gives force to public opinion, it is essential that public opinion should be enlightened. It is no less true today that enlightenment is an essential condition for democracy. What sort of community do you live in? Where would you place it on a democracy-despotism scale? To find out whether citizens get an even break, you can rate it on a respect scale. And to find out whether they share in the making of decisions, you rate it on a power scale. If you want to know what way it is likely to go in the future, rate it on scales for economic distribution and information. The lower your community rates on economic balance and enlightenment, the lower it is likely to rate on the respect and power scales. To make sure that democracy is safe in your community, first see whether you can find in it two distinct signs of democracy, shared respect and shared power. Then turn your attention to two important conditions on which they depend, economic balance and enlightenment. There is no standing still. The more economic balance and enlightenment, the more shared respect and shared power. Democracy is something that's never finished. If a community works to balance its economy, and if it works to enlighten its citizens, such a community can achieve shared respect, and it can achieve shared power. By working hard at it, the citizens of any community can achieve democracy.